Soccer Today is powered by Spin Media. From podcast to video production, visit spinmediadigitalsolutions.com and bring your content to the next level.
Ya lo hace, pierna derecha, directo al arco, golazo, golazo, golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane Rollins and Kevin Laramie, live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
Good day, good night. Welcome to Soccer Today for Wednesday, August 17th, 2022. I'm Kev Laramie. Duane Rollins will be joining me in just a second as we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on that notification bell to be made aware whenever we upload a brand new podcast that you can find, of course, wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, amongst other places. And before I get going, I'm going to invite you for tonight's great match, the return of Nacho Piatti in Montreal on a soccer pitch. Montreal former players and the media will having a game tonight, 5:30, and it'll be my pleasure and, of course, my humiliation to play in this game. Duane, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Our podcast is also occasionally available if you really just listen very hard at Dundas and Ossington in that general area. I'm not going to tell you my exact address, folks, but you might be able to hear me if I get particularly animated. Or if you give me enough beer, maybe I might just start a podcast spontaneously at night. Who knows?
On a box in the corner in Hyde Park, right? Speaker's Corner in London. That's where you can find Duane on most Sundays. But no, it's an interesting aspect that we are having this platform to talk today about the new BMO Field renderings. We'll also, of course, review LAFC versus DC United, another big win for LAFC last night, another defeat for Wayne Rooney and DC United. But let's start by talking about architecture. Let's talk about stadium. We love to talk about stadium and the upcoming World Cup. It has been announced Toronto will be one of the cities, but for that they need a new stadium or at least renovations to BMO Field. And yesterday it was announced on BMO Field's website and according to multiple different social media platforms. Here are what have been shown. The new images that you could see that would bring the level and the amount of seats available to World Cup, well, qualities. So you see those stands, and that's the big point of contention. Is these stands that we call the east and west end, Duane?
That's the south end you're talking about. The non-covered stands are the south end,
So south end and north end, you can see that's where the biggest differences would be. And people look at those stands and they're like, it's almost out of the stadium. And then they have a flashback to, yes, the World Cup in Russia, Ekaterinburg. Those stands that we can see on the screen right now, Duane. The infamous stands that look like you're going to fall off and break your neck. But, of course, what is your thought on the new renderings of what BMO Field could look like come 2026?
Well, look, if you tuned in hoping I'd go on some kind of rant about the stadium, I'm sorry to disappoint you. My thoughts are this is exactly what I expected it to look like because they told us this is what they were going to look like. In terms of the stands that everyone says are being blocked by the roof, you mentioned flashbacks to Russia 2018. They actually should have flashbacks to MLS Cup 2016 because that's exactly how they had the extra stands built. They also built they were ultimately built for the Grey Cup that year, which was hosted by BMO Field.
And they were leftover from the Pan Am Games, maybe?
No, it was for sure. It was for the Grey Cup was there, and then they held them for the Winter Classic, which was held in the following winter. So the BMO had those extra stands for a while. And look, they're not great, and they'll be a little nicer than they were there because they'll be permanent, whereas they were temporary before. But in terms of the view, you're not blocked by the roof. You can see through. They're not the best seats, but they'll be the cheapest seats in the house, likely. So they are what they are. Look, this is almost a flashback to our Five Rings show right now, in the sense that we're talking about a stadium and what makes sense for a city and a community to do with a stadium for an event like this. Do you really want Toronto to spend billions of dollars, and it would probably end up being that, to make a whole new stadium? No, of course not. You want to spend $500 million to make an particularly aggressive redesign of BMO Field? Well, how disruptive would that be to BMO Field in the meantime? How disruptive would that be in general, and how wasteful would that money be? This is the solution. It is not the prettiest solution. I lovingly and jokingly call BMO Field a Lego field anyway, because it's been put together piece by piece and a little bit by, a young person who has forgotten to take their ADHD medicine too. It's a little bit all over the place. And those of us that go every week can kind of have a soft spot for that. I get from an outside perspective that it doesn't look that great, but you know what? I don't think cities and countries should bankrupt themselves to host these events. And this is an opportunity to use an existing facility, expand it so the numbers can get in there and have an event like this. And if we were on Five Rings, we would talk about perceived benefits and real benefits and all this sort of stuff right now. There are no real benefits to expanding this. You're not going to make any more money in there. There will not be very many more jobs created beyond the expansion part of it. So the soft benefits, the big picture stuff in terms of having inspiration, all that's still going to happen. So don't worry about the damn stadium being rebuilt. It's going to look fine on TV. Mm-hmm. We're not going to be embarrassed. If you're not sitting in those stands, why do you care what they look like, ultimately?
All right. So BMO Field will be in use tonight, Duane, because Toronto will have a short week turning around to playing tonight. 2 games this week for Toronto, one of the few teams that will be playing twice this week, and one of the teams played last night, LAFC DC. We'll review that game in a second, but let's take a look at the schedule on the docket tonight. So, I mentioned LAFC DC United. It was 1-0 last night. Atlanta, New York, important game for the Red Bulls. Can they stay in touch and keep pace with the top dogs in the race in the Eastern Conference, or are they in middle of the road pack? They are playing on the road, which they are better on the road. So New York is happy about that. Mentioned Toronto. They're playing the New England Revolution tonight. Will Toronto make it 5 in a row, Duane? Will Toronto make it 5-game unbeaten streak?
Well, I think we're not going to get to the Vancouver game yet, but I think in both Canadian teams' perspective here, we are in capital M, capital W territory right now, must win. Really, if TFC wants to make the playoffs, then they are going to need to beat a direct rival in New England in a home game. Who cares if it's 2 games in a week? It's 2 games for New England in a week too, and they're on the road. They have to win this game tonight. If there's any chance in my mind, if they lose this game, they're probably going to lose ground. Suddenly you're 8 games left and maybe 5 points back, 7 points back, whatever. That becomes impossible at that point, really, unless you win them out. We'll talk more about Vancouver when we get there, but I would say that they're in a similar position in terms of their playoff push, although maybe they have a little more leeway because it's so much tighter there. Yeah, look, they should be the slight favorite tonight. They should have beat New England in New England 2 weeks ago. Had the penalty late. Maybe it was a bad call. Maybe it wasn't. Who knows? They missed the penalty at any rate. Insigne didn't get his first goal that day. It's an opportunity to put a stamp on this and to really, put their foot to New England's neck, a team that doesn't seem like they're able to overcome the problems that they've had all year. But you give them a little leeway, suddenly they're 7 points up on TFC, and as I said, that's tough. So this is capital M, capital W time.
Absolutely, and we'll see how Toronto responds today. Will they continue their winning streak? Of course, when they have the Bernadeschi, the Criscitos, including with Insigne, and then you add Jesus Jimenez, they're undefeated. 3-0-1 over the last 4 games, and they can make it 5 tonight. Playing against New England, we saw the standings on your screen. This is before the midweek games, and New England is 8 right now. Toronto is 12. With a win, Toronto will be only 1 point behind New England and will be back in contention, at least in the discussion, for a potential playoff position, at least in the race. NYCFC and Charlotte, that's interesting too, because Charlotte needs a win to keep pace. They are 4 points behind Cincinnati in the Eastern Conference right now, but NYCFC is kind of like on a slide. They've done so well at the beginning of the season, changed the coach, changed the top players. Tati is gone. He's still in the race for the Golden Boot for now, but he's going to be surpassed very quickly. But you're looking at an NYCFC that is not firing on all cylinders. They are very good. Still maybe if not the second best team in the Eastern Conference with Philly. But can they turn things around before it becomes a problem? They're facing Charlotte. Charlotte is not a shell of who they were at the beginning of the season. This is NYCFC's time to turn it around.
Yeah, well, Charlotte's sort of experiencing what a lot of first-year expansion teams do, in the sense that they don't have their full depth worked out yet, and even if they get off to a good start, in Charlotte, I think, got off to a much better start than a lot of us thought that they would. So that's to their credit. But they are sort of experiencing the dog days sort of effect when the depth kind of doesn't kick in. NYCFC has been in a bit of a funk. I don't think it's safe to say since the coaching change, they haven't really been able to to play at the level that they did certainly down the stretch last year, or that they've had over the past 5 years, where I'll remind people again, they've had the best overall record of Major League Soccer since 2015 in the regular season. This is a team that usually does find its way, but right now they're in a bit of a funk, and this is an opportunity.
To prove that they're in a funk, Duane, I have here, I can say it. They haven't won a game since July 23rd. They've are in a 3-game winless streak, I guess I could say. Winless is the proper terminology, but it's not like they were terrible losses either. So let's go back to July 23rd. They won 2-0 against Miami. So that's their last victory. After that, Montreal was 0-0 against NYCFC on July 30th. And they played decent, but New York had no shots on target in that game. Columbus, New York City. Columbus won 3-2 on August 6th. And then Miami won 3-2 earlier last weekend on August 13th. So winless since July 23rd. That's coming up on 4 weeks.
Yeah, and it's more than just the stats test. The eyeball test also suggests that they're not playing as well. And they've lost some key players, a coach and a leading scorer. So that's going to change any team, right? But as I just said, this is a team that is still pretty safe. They're more than pretty safe. I think they're all but mathematically clinched. They are going to make the playoffs, so they have time to work this out. They have time to implement the new systems that they're trying to do. As others have pointed out, they're trying to rework into a new defensive system now, and whether that's a good idea or not is up for others to debate. It's not, but whatever. Why? Even Chris Armas understood not to screw around with something when it was going well. He won a supporter's shield by letting Jesse March's tactics continue on. What happened after he started to put his own in? Well, we'll let others judge that. I'm judging it by saying that. I can't believe I got a Chris Armas dig in. There you go.
Well, what happened in Toronto? Exactly. All right, let's continue to take a look at the midweek games for week 26. Dallas, Philadelphia. That one's quite interesting. Will Philadelphia play well on the road? Can the Kai Wagner, Jack Elliott continue their amazing season they're having? And Andre Blake. In Dallas, though, Dallas is one of the best teams in the Western Conference. They have Jesus Ferreira, who's having a great season, Paul Arriola, and a couple of great young players completing the core of this squad that is having a good season. This is an inter-conference game, so it's a bit of a bonus points, as we say. I'm kind of interesting to watch that game later tonight.
Yeah, no, Dallas has played very well this year, and Philadelphia, LAFC is the favorite to win MLS Cup, as we said multiple times. We'll talk about it again in a minute, but I think Philadelphia is your clear number 2 now, because they are the clear best team in the East, with New England sort of floundering a little bit, and no one else in that big mess of a team that I really trust to go on a run. I mean, there's a lot of questions with everyone out there. So this is a really interesting game, and it's an interesting test for a Philadelphia team that probably does still think they're in a supporter shield race. I don't think they are, but they probably do, and they're going to want to get the 3 points.
It's hard to argue that there's anybody in the race right now but LAFC. Dallas is third in the Western Conference, and those are the standings before the midweek games. So before last night games, we're going to have updated standings on tomorrow's show when all the midweek games will be played. And of course, I'm going to plug tonight's game at Saint-Claude Robillard in Montreal once again, because I'm quite happy and quite nervous. I'm playing this one. I've been practicing for the last few days. It'll be a fun time at the Saint-Claude Robillard, me playing with or against Patrice Bernier and Nacho Piatti. We were talking about LAFC and DC. They have played last night. A big win by LAFC at home. Kwadwo Opoku scored at the 67th minute. A bad record in August for DC United, record of 0-3-1. Wayne Rooney, since winning his debut in MLS as a manager with, let's not forget, 2 goals in extra time to get 3 points, has had a winless record. But for LAFC, the score might not be indicative of the entire game. Point blank save by Maxime Crépeau that actually saved the point, if not more. This victory is not just signed Opoku, it is signed Maxime Crépeau, and for the first time in LAFC's history, they not only have a strong offense, good defenders, but all that mixed with a good goalkeeper, because over the last few years, maybe the Achilles heel of LAFC was the goalkeeping. Now Maxime Crépeau stepping up last night once again.
I don't think there's any maybe about it. It was their Achilles. It was their exhaust port, their Achilles heel, whichever terminology you want to use to indicate a weakness in an otherwise juggernaut, right? Kerpo had a good game, as you just said. This was a decent performance by DC overall, that they were competitive up until the red card. Kind of took them out of it a little bit. For a road game, they clearly the XG shows that LA was the better team overall. But
red card to Steven Bourbon at the 60th minute, which it's not on the screen right now, but that came before the goal. The goal was scored after DC got a red card.
Yeah, and look, the right team won. DC will probably take it as a bit of a moral victory, although I don't know if Wayne Rooney and the rest of the folks will think of it that way immediately. But in terms of how bad that team is right now, and they are pretty bad, it was a decent performance on the road. Now, that said, this game really did illustrate that there's a bit of a change in MLS from like when I first started watching the league, when truly it was like, people would joke not to bet on MLS because you might as well just throw darts at a board or flush your money down a toilet because you couldn't predict anything. You kind of can now. LA was able to go into that game, rest Chiellini, not really play Bale. Not play Bale literally.
Not really. He was not even on the 18, so they did not play Bale at all. I was looking at the lineup because I got a reminder, and I'm like, oh yeah, fantasy. I got to fix that before we're heading into a double game week. And then looking at like Gareth Bale, yeah, not even on the bench.
Yeah, to use load management is what they're calling it, because they're trying to peak it out so that they can play the key games. They've got a game against Austin in 2 weeks, I guess a week and a half now, that they're probably geared up towards. They'll view that as kind of their shield clincher if they can win it. So look, this is a team that's able to rotate in a league game and still comfortably-ish, it was a 1-goal win, so you're not going to say real comfortable, but comfortable-ish win, get your full 3 points. That didn't happen in Major League Soccer even 5 years ago. Well, maybe 5 years ago, they were starting to see that, but it's fully ended now where you do have an elite tier, and LAFC is on another level talent-wise.
Oh, yeah.
The kids they brought in, they brought subs off the bench to change this game. This is a deep team. This is the best team I've ever watched, and I watched the 2017 TFC. Now, they're going to have to win stuff to prove that, but so far it looks like they might.
Oh yeah, this is not a sustainable roster because there's a salary cap in Major League Soccer and allocation, and you cannot sustain this amount of investment forever. But for now, it's a great investment, and LAFC is looking like not only the team to beat for the regular season, for the Supporter Shield, but for the playoff, for the upcoming CCL, for the next 18 months in MLS. It's going to be a force to be reckoned with. After this short break, we will continue to look at the games taking place this evening. Even Friday, there's a game before the actual weekend slate. We will be looking at also the Golden Boot race that is quite spectacular this year. And one player playing in Canada has invited himself to this race. That and more after this short break.
You are listening to Soccer Today. Follow us on Twitter at SoccerTodaySPN and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network.
And we're back on Soccer Today. Kevin Laramie, and I'll be joined by Duane Rollins in a second as I invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click on that subscribe button and that notification bell to be made aware of whenever we upload a brand new podcast that is, of course, available as a podcast wherever you find your favorite podcasts, your favorite shows on favorite applications, from Apple Podcasts to Google Play Store to Spreaker and Spotify. We are available everywhere. And tonight, I am happy to say that I'm making my return to the field this evening in Nacho Piatti's return also. And this will be taking place at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time at Saint-Claude-Robillard at the outdoor field. A lot of people are expected to show up to see Nacho wear the bleu, blanc, et noir for one more time, as I will this evening. It'll be fun. Hopefully, tomorrow's show is all well and good, and I still have 2 ankles, 2 knees, and everything that I need to have a beautiful day, a beautiful fall, of course, with the advent of my child coming later. But Duane, I want to highlight the presence of Nacho Piatti, Patrice Bernier, another great in the history of Montreal Impact, Gabriel Gervais, Sandro Grande, Charles Becquet, Ali Gerba, Rocco Placentino, John Limniadis, Valerio Gazzola, all names that we've heard before, Patrick Leduc, and I'm looking forward to sharing the field this evening with all of them.
I was at the D-Row testimonial, which this sounds a little bit like a testimonial for Piatti, a little bit, kinda.
I guess it's a testimonial for the. Yeah, you're right. I guess it's the media and Piatti, whatever. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have one, so it has that element to it that you have the opportunity to say goodbye to a star. And the reason I brought the D-Row was not to compare to Toronto, but it's the only one I had direct experience to. It was a lot of fun. So if you're Montreal and you're not doing anything else, it's a lot of fun. You get to see players. It's low key. You have jokes. You can interact with the players on the pitch a little bit. At least we could in that game. Kai Kamara famously was talking to us in the south end, and we were giving him a hard time, and he shrugged his shoulders at us. And then we gave him a little cheer. It was a good time.
I'm giving you my word. If somebody comes up and talks to me while I'm on the pitch, I will answer back. I will help and I will talk. I don't know what number I will be playing tonight in, but hopefully you'll recognize me and I have Laramie in the back of my shirt and you can talk to me this evening if you are coming. A few people have told me on social media that they will be coming. It'll be a great evening. I'm really looking forward to this fun evening at the park. And after the game, the U20 will be playing, and I'm looking forward to just enjoying a soccer game outdoors for the first time in a long time, because usually I am working. Before we continue, I want to say thank you to our patrons that you can find. This is a shout out here: Pierre Mayotte, Patrick, Martin, Jordan, Ian, Gonzalo, Glad, Dennis, Daniel, Sean. Almost 2 full weeks left of summer before school starts again, so hopefully Sean is one of the best teachers in the country. Hopefully he continues to enjoy his summer. And Blue Collar Dan, let's go Blue Collar Dan. I know you're listening right now as we continue to look at the scores in Major League Soccer. Over the next few days, you'll see Vancouver, Colorado. And to me, Duane, this is an important game, because it's a show me, don't tell me territory. And this might be where the threshold of, are we set? There's no trade deadline or whatever, but if there was one, this is where you decide if you're a seller or you're a mover. It's this weekend. Because look, Vancouver, if we're looking at the Western Conference standings before last night's game, Vancouver is 11th with 30 points. If they win against Colorado, they win 3 points, but they also take away 3 points from Colorado. And Vancouver is equal with Portland, at least on points, and maybe even Nashville, depending of all the tiebreakers. And they would have the same amount of games played as Nashville. But with a loss, they could find themselves 6 points away from a playoff spot. And 6 points away with 8 games to play seems just a little bit too far away.
Yeah, no, I called it capital M, capital W, which I'm just a term I'm just made up today. So don't put it on the bingo card yet. Don't know if I'm going to use it again, but it's a must-win game, I think, for both Colorado and Vancouver in that particular case. Look, it looks close, but just like TFC looks close, but at this point in the season, 2 or 3 points is a lot bigger than you think, particularly if you're below more than one team. You can't just eye in that one team and compare the results. You got to leapfrog a bunch of teams, which means you just have to keep winning. More to the point, when it comes to the Whitecaps, I mean, they had their butt handed to them last week by the Galaxy. This is an opportunity to prove that maybe they are for real on that line. The Galaxy being another team that last week at this time was below the line, or at least on the line, and they didn't show. They showed that they didn't belong in the same class with them, at least on the night. The Whitecaps, I feel bad about this, but it's a broken record with them, like that they are just the team that has a ceiling that is around the playoff line. So they're going to need to get hot again. If they're going to make the playoffs, they're going to have to do it the same way they did last year. They're going to need to streak out. And if they're losing, 5-2 or whatever it was, they're not going to.
Exactly.
5-2
with losing the expected goal battle and Brian White not taking part. You don't have the same magic. It'll be difficult. But this is where we'll see if Vancouver is in the battle for a playoff spot or looking in the battle. And I believe they'll find themselves just outside, looking into the battle of making the playoffs. And we can now move on, and there's one last game taking place this week before the weekend, and it is Friday, the Galaxy at home versus the Seattle Sounders. And the reason why I want to talk about this one is because the Seattle Sounders find themselves in a weird situation. Seattle could be missing the playoffs for the first time in their history. They have never missed the playoffs. And 2022 could be that year. They find themselves outside looking in, Portland in the way, And the Galaxy, who are in the playoff spot, might want to get this famous 6 points game. The Galaxy Seattle classic game this Friday.
Yeah, the Sounders, not only have the Sounders never missed the playoffs, Kevin, they've never finished lower than 4th. I mean,
that is pretty insane. And it's since, like, at the beginning it was a new team, but they've been there since 2009. So it's been 14 seasons now.
I can still remember Freddie Lindbergh coming into BMO Field in 2019 or 2009 TFC's home opener and handed it to TFC, and we're all like, that's when I think we first started to believe that we might be in for a long, long run at TFC, and we were. It ended up coming out okay.
I didn't think I would say this, but may he rest in peace, Freddie Lindbergh.
Yeah.
Who did he pass away a couple of years ago?
I don't. I think you've said that before on the show, and I don't think it happened. But anyway, look, Google that while I talk.
You talk, and I'll Google that.
Yeah, if he's alive, reports of his death have been greatly exaggerated. We'll just say that and get that out of the way. The Sounders, look, they famously turned things around in 2016, ended up winning MLS Cup against that same TFC team that I just mentioned at BMO Field that cold night. But I think you can draw into the conclusion that maybe they can do it again, but let's keep in mind this season started about a month early and it's ending about 2 weeks early. So we aren't really in August in terms of the context. We're more in September now. So for them to do it now would be an even bigger comeback to do it.
So he's alive. Why I remember him is because he took over for Arsenal, which I guess equals to dying. So that's why I thought he died. But no, he was interim manager after one of them got canned after what's his face, Wenger decided to go.
I am positive this is the second time we've had this very conversation on this show.
There's probably but to my defense, there was a reason why his name, because he was in the news. And usually when you're in the news, it's either because he died or he did something wrong. And I was like, I don't remember him doing anything wrong. So I guess he died.
I think my face reaction at the same time was, I checked that. But anyway.
And you were right. He is not dead. The report of his demise have been greatly exaggerated.
Live podcasting, folks. This is a radio program that we happen to put on podcast and on Twitter, and in YouTube. But yeah, it's all good. Who else is not dead is Piatti. Back to Montreal tonight.
Exactly, sure. Exactly, and who else will be not dead and playing? And I want to finish the show with this is Romel Kyoto, because he invited himself into the conversation of Golden Boot. Look at this. Christian Arango also is now 12. Well, he's 7th with 12 goals, equal with Kyoto. But Driussi, top of the league with 17. Brendan Vasquez of Cincinnati, 2nd. And there is now talk of Brendan Vasquez being called up by the U.S. men's national team, maybe in time for the World Cup. Wouldn't that be something for our friends down south? Jeremy Bobisse of San Jose's 3rd. Jesus Ferreira, equal. And Ani Mukhtar, equal with 14 goals. Then you got Tati Castellano still in the conversation, but he cannot win because he does not play in MLS anymore. Christian Arango, who is going to continue to play very well because he's got the famous Damocles sword above him. It's called Gareth Bale and playing time. If he does not perform, he's going to be taking off the field. Or maybe moved into Brian Rodriguez's spot because Rodriguez might be on his way out. We'll see if that happens. But then you have Romel Kyoto, who has been having his best season in his entire career. He scored 6 goals in his last 7 games. It should be 7 because he should have gotten that second penalty. He should have buried, but he didn't. Romel Kyoto, 12 goals. Part of the Golden Boot race, maybe not there at the end, but this is the first time since Nacho Piatti in 2018 that you have a more than 10 goal striker in Montreal. This is the famous striker Montreal has been looking for. The numbers are telling us so.
Yeah, the overall numbers are interesting too. This is going to be the second straight year where the Golden Boot's going to be won by about 23-24, I think.
Which is high in history.
Yeah, overall, but it's low compared to the 3 or 4 years previous to that, where they were having crazy numbers put up by superstars, and that might have something to do with the transfer market being dulled through the pandemic and so forth. So we don't know.
I think also best defenders with TAM and defensive midfielders are a bit better because of the TAM, maybe, but.
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah, that they've improved that side of the game, and that would reduce the goals. I'm not going to say anything. It's full credit to whoever wins it. It's the same for everyone out there. You mentioned Vasquez and Fiera. If you're listening to any American podcasts out there, which we encourage you to do after you listen to us first, though, the debate is raging wild on who their number 9 is going to be in Qatar. It's the greatest part of conversation. So we're not going to belabor that here, too. But both of those guys, I suspect, will be, in that Japan game that's taking place, in September, a long time when Canada will be playing Qatar and Uruguay at the same time. The U.S. is playing Japan, and off the top of my head, I forget the other opponent.
I don't know. It's too far away. I'm not even thinking about international now. But it will be fun because when I look at this roster quickly of the U.S., I'll take Canada over the U.S. If they face each other in Qatar, I'm like, I wouldn't be afraid if I'm Canada.
Well, yeah, if we play them, and it'd be awesome if we play them in the World Cup because it would mean that it's the final.
It would be the final.
I think that's the only way that can happen.
Imagine Canada, U.S. in the final. Never happen.
Yeah, so that's probably not get there. Let's get through that group stage before, and then one of either Spain or Germany likely. Canada's draw is not the easiest, so then we'll worry one game at a time before we worry about the 7th game. Anyway, if Canada does make it to the 7th game, will it be the biggest Game 7 in Canadian history? There's your hockey reference.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, how do you judge it? By the amount of viewers? Because that would be, for sure.
Yeah, and if we make the 7th, that could be the 3rd place game, though, if you make the 7th game.
Hey, the 3rd place game, we're getting silly,
but
the 3rd place game is probably more watched than any Stanley Cup Finals was ever anyways.
Yeah. That'd be an interesting pub quiz competition to name all the 3rd place winners for the last 10 World Cups. So that'd be a very good pub quiz.
No, I can't.
Yeah, who won the 3rd place game in the last World Cup?
I thought there was. Didn't they?
England lost it, but who'd they lose it to?
Wasn't it Croatia? No,
Croatia was in the final. It was Croatia, France. So who was the 4th team in the semifinals?
See, exactly. I'm out already.
Yeah. Anyhow, so our viewers are yelling at us. We're getting silly now having trivia questions online.
But on that note, we'll get ready for tonight's game. And once again, I'll invite you to come and see me play. And Nacho Piatti, come here. All information below. Centre Claude Robillard, 5:30 p.m. And it'll be an amazing time to see Nacho Piatti return to the pitch. My return to the pitch, and hopefully not to the infirmary. And a great evening at Centre Claude Robillard. There'll be meat on barbecue. Now he's always very, very winning, and you can come and say hello. And I won't be working. I'm going to be there for fun. I might be taking some pictures and stuff, and come and see me. Rarely am I out in the public, in the field, and tonight will be the night. Come say hello. Let's play some footy together. And as always, until next time, you can follow Duane on social media at 24th Minutes, myself at Kev Laramie, and this show at Soccer Today SPN. As always, until next time, have a great soccer.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.